Meet the most feared defensive player of all time, Lawrence Taylor.
The last defensive football player to win the Most Valuable Player award.
I tell you, Lawrence Taylor is going to be a force in this league.
When you think of greatness in the NFL, names like Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, and Tom Brady often come to mind. But when it comes to sheer terror, no name strikes fear into the heart of an opposing defense like Lawrence Taylor, the man who redefined the position of linebacker, crushed quarterbacks, and left defensive coordinators sleepless the night before games, 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and one of only 2 defensive players ever to win MVP, epitomized dominance on the field. Bill Belichick weighed in on Taylor's impact, saying his dominance, the greatness of Lawrence Taylor, he's bigger, stronger, faster, more explosive. Even though he didn't really know what he was doing, instinctively as a football player, he's at the very top of the list. This is the story of Lawrence Taylor, the greatest defensive player of all time. Before we can understand how fierce Lawrence Taylor was on the field, we need to look at his life. Lawrence Taylor, also known as LT, was born on February 4, 1959 in Williamsburg, Virginia. He's the oldest son of Clarence and Iris Taylor. His mother taught at a school, and his father worked as a dispatcher at the Newport News Docks. He was known for being naughty and independent from a very young age. The first sport he played was baseball, where he was a catcher. When he was 15, he moved to football. He didn't play organized high school football until the following year, when he was in 11th grade. After high school, it wasn't easy for teams to sign him. As a freshman playing on special teams, he'd jump a good 6 or 7 feet in the air to block a punt, then land on the back of his neck. He was reckless, just reckless, remarked Bobby Cale, an assistant coach at North Carolina. LT went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill after he graduated from Lafayette High School in 1977. He started out as a defensive lineman but later switched to linebacker. During college, he played in a risky but successful way that pleased both his teammates and teachers. He was named All-America and Atlantic Coast Conference Player of the Year and had 16 sacks by the end of his senior year. He also set many defense marks. Lawrence Taylor's NFL journey was nothing short of revolutionary, starting from the moment when he was picked by the New York Giants with the 2nd overall pick in the 1981 NFL Draft. 26 of the 28 NFL general managers who were asked before the draft said they would have picked Taylor if they had the first pick. Giants general manager George Young said, "Taylor is the best college linebacker I've ever seen. Sure, I saw Dick Butkus play, but there's no doubt in my mind about Taylor. He's bigger and stronger than Butkus was. On the blitz, he's devastating." However, the New Orleans Saints, who did have the first pick, picked George Rogers instead. When Taylor first arrived in the NFL, it was clear that he was different from every other player the league had seen. The Giants were desperate to be the best on defense, and LT was their only hope. During training camp with the Giants, Lawrence Taylor's skills were quickly seen. There were rumors about how great he was before he even played in a real game. He played in his first NFL game in a preseason game on August 8, 1981. The Ravens beat the Chicago Bears and he had 2 sacks. His fierce style of play caught the attention of everyone in the league. Opponents, including the famous quarterback Terry Bradshaw, were amazed by how fierce he was on the field. On September 6, 1981, Lawrence Taylor played in his first NFL regular season game. It was a loss for the Giants to the Philadelphia Eagles. His first game wasn't very impressive, but he ended his rookie year with 9.5 sacks, which is one of the best in NFL history for a rookie. The NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year and NFL Defensive Player of the Year awards were both given to him. He was the only rookie to ever win both. By Lawrence Taylor's second season in 1982, it was clear that he was changing the way linebackers were played. Before LT, a blitzing linebacker wasn't an important part of defenses, but he was an unbeatable pass rusher because he was both strong and fast. Even though teams had a year of film to study, he still had 7.5 sacks in only 9 games during the brief season because of the strike. He was named Defensive Player of the Year and first-team All-Pro again. A former player, Michael Strahan, talked about Lawrence Taylor.
But one thing I can say about Lawrence Taylor is everyone knows he's a great football player, and everyone knows he's a great athlete because he watched the games. But if you watch the practices, you understand why. Taking scout team plays, running 100 miles per hour every single play he's on that field. That's how I learned how a real pro practices. That's what I learned from you, Lawrence.
As Lawrence Taylor got used to his role, he turned into a player who scared defenses in a way that no one had seen before. Most people thought of the linebacker position as a backup when it came to putting pressure on the quarterback before Lawrence Taylor. The main job of defensive linemen was to rush the quarterback, while linebackers were supposed to provide assistance. That old-school idea was blown out of the water by Lawrence Taylor. The league had never seen anyone with Taylor's size, speed, and instincts work together like that. LT was 6 foot 3 inches and weighed about 240 pounds. He was strong enough to beat up on offensive tackles, but fast enough to easily chase down passers and running backs. The edge rush was his signature move, and it scared passers and made offensive coaches try to figure out how to stop him. His ability to change the game was most impressive when he had 20.5 sacks, which was the most in his career. Teams had to rethink their whole attacking plans because Taylor was so good. The left tackle position, which wasn't given as much attention as the right tackle position, became one of the most important ones on the field all of a sudden because teams needed someone to protect their passers from LT's dogged chase. A lot of people say that Taylor's effect on the game made left tackles bigger and better. And then, left tackle position becomes the highest paid position on the team other than quarterback. Beyond his stats and awards, Lawrence Taylor's real achievement is how he changed the game and the people who played with him. He wasn't just a wrecking ball. He was an important part of the New York Giants defense that won 2 Super Bowls. The first was in Super Bowl 21, which came after the 1986 season. That year, LT was named NFL Most Valuable Player. A lot of the time, defensive players don't win MVP awards, but Taylor was a special player. His success that year, which included 20.5 sacks, made him the most important player in the league on both sides of the ball. 4 years later, in Super Bowl 25, the Giants beat the Buffalo Bills 20-19 in one of the most exciting games in NFL history to win their second Super Bowl. Taylor's drive and leadership were big parts of the Giants' success during those years, and he cemented his reputation as a winner. Taylor's way of playing was marked by a level of passion that was almost scary. He didn't just want to hit, he wanted to emotionally and physically beat his opponents. His style was like a hunter stalking its prey, and his signature move was a ruthless hit to the quarterback's blind side. This anger was very clear in a game on November 18, 1985 against the Washington Redskins. Taylor hit QB Joe Theismann with so much force that Theismann's leg was broken in 2 places, ending his career. This is one of the most famous plays in NFL history. Even though he was known for giving hard hits, Taylor was the first to call for help because he knew how badly he had hurt the person. Taylor changed the game, not just sacked the quarterback. His unmatched speed, power, and intelligence changed the way linebackers were played. Faster than anyone else, he was able to get close to the quarterback and hit him hard. It was up to the offensive managers to change things, and Lawrence Taylor was a big part of how the NFL is today. Joe Madden said, "Lawrence Taylor, defensively, has had as big an impact as any player I've ever seen. He changed the way defenses played, the way pass rushing is played, the way linebackers play, and the way offenses block linebackers." To fully understand how dominant Lawrence Taylor was, it's important to look at the many awards he won during his time. He put an end to the game. Because he could rush the quarterback and Belichick was so good at what he did, defenses had to start working on improving their stops. In 1981, the Giants picked Taylor 2nd overall out of North Carolina. He was named to win the first-team All-Pro 8 times and the second-team All-Pro twice. He helped the Giants win 2 Super Bowls. He had 19 sacks, but this is not an official list because he played in the NFL for 2 years before sacks were publicly counted. He has 132.5 sacks, 1,088 stops, 9 interceptions, and 2 defensive scores on record. The Giants had a great season in 1986, and he was named NFL MVP. He led the league in hits. Alan Page of the Vikings in 1971 is the only other defensive player to win the honor. He has been named NFL Defensive Player of the Year 3 times, and in 1981, he was named NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was on the NFL's 75th and 100th anniversary teams and the 1980s All-Decade team. He has also been to the Pro Bowl 10 times. Lawrence Taylor is one of the most important players in NFL history. I'm honored to be part of such an exclusive group of great players, I'm humbled that my legacy continues all these years later. I know how fortunate I am for that," Taylor said. Even though Lawrence Taylor was great on the field, he had to deal with a lot of problems that made his reputation more difficult. He had a lot of problems with drugs and drinking during his career, and he was often fined or suspended. Taylor himself said that he lived a dangerous life, which made him more dangerous on the field, but also put his career at risk of ending too soon. Taylor was always able to work at the top level, even when things were hard. He was the best quarterback in NFL history, even when he was dealing with personal problems. His story is one of salvation because he finally got help for his drugs and figured out how to keep his life stable after football. The story of Taylor's life shows that even the best players face problems, but what makes them truly great is how they deal with them. Taylor played for 3 more years before he quit in 1993. Taylor left the NFL after 13 years because he knew it was time. His last game was a playoff loss to the San Francisco 49ers. Years after his retirement, Lawrence Taylor's influence on the NFL is still felt today. What is it about Lawrence Taylor that makes him the most feared defensive player ever? Not just his stats, even though they are crazy. And it's not just his awards, though he has a lot of them. It's how he made people feel during the game. Taylor was a player who did more than just beat you up. He also broke your mind. The offensive tackles hated having to play against him. It kept quarterbacks up at night thinking about how to stay away from him. In order to account for him, coaches had to totally change their plans. LT was free to scare attacks around during a time when the rules were easier on defenses, and he did just that. Taylor not only changed the way the game was played, but he also made the league change to fit him. These days, edge rushers are some of the most important players in football because of what he did. Von Miller, Khalil Mack, and TJ Watt would not be where they are without Lawrence Taylor. Not just the New York Giants are affected by him, the whole NFL is affected by him. For the Giants' 100th season, it only makes sense that Lawrence Taylor is at the top of their list of the top 100 players. He is not only the best Giant of all time, but also the most feared defensive player in NFL history. His strength, bravery, and ability to change the game made him both. He was feared. He was looked up to. He was also great. This was the story of Lawrence Taylor, the NFL's most feared defensive player ever. Want more news about the best stars in NFL history? Then subscribe, and you'll never miss our latest videos.